Oh, sorry about cutting out there. Um, I needed to stop the video for a moment because I wanted to make sure I fully understood the functionality that was happening, just so I could explain things clearly. Um, Basically, just picking up where we left off, our email helper. You notice I've kind of changed the code right here, so I'm just returning the string email. This helper was not functioning correctly. We were returning the currently logged in user, not the user that was the creator of the current tweet that we're inside of. So just as a general point on how we can access information inside of um, one of these each blocks, there's actually an um, implied this keyword right here. So now I'm saying this dot text, this, I'll just type this in, this is equal to the current tweet object that we're looking at. And since that thing has a dot text field, we're basically putting the dot text field right in this spot. So using the this keyword can be kind of helpful to us, and I'll show you why that's useful. So normally we could just say text, and it will just assume that there's a this keyword in front of it, and it just kind of all magically works out. But I'm actually going to leave the this keyword here just to make this clearer. So this is the current tweet that we're on. So the reason this is useful is because basically what we need to happen right now is the following. We need this email field, this email helper, to return the email address of whoever created the tweet. We'll be able to get to the email address by using the created by field on the tweet, which we'll get to by saying this dot created by. We'll get to that field, and then we will look up that user from the users collection and then grab the email address off that user's object. So I know there's a lot of steps there, so I'm just going to break that down a little bit. So the first thing we need to do is look at the current tweet using the this keyword. Then after that, we want to sorry, let me make sure I'm explaining this correctly. So the first thing we want to do is look at the current tweet with the this keyword. Then we want to look at the this dot created by field, which is going to give us one of these magic underscore IDs, specifically the underscore ID of the user that created that tweet. Then we can get access to the users collection in our Meteor app by saying meteor.users. This is the users collection. So it has the same find one fields, insert, the usual stuff that a collection has. So in this case, we are going to want to find whichever user had the ID that's on this tweet's created by field. So we'll say meteor.users, and we are only trying to find one object. So we'll say find one. And then we're going to want to pass in basically that tweets created by field. So that sort of breaks it down into the different steps that we're doing. So I know that there's a lot here. So let's go back to our code. It's always kind of easier when you're looking at the code. Now we know that we can get access to the current created by field by saying, and I'll just put it in a p tag here to demonstrate this concept, by saying this dot created by. So if we go here, you can see we added a new p tag to each one of our tweets, and that's one of those magically generated IDs right there. So now we want to somehow get the this.createdById into this helper. Now we're used to thinking about helpers in terms of returning information from code into our HTML, but that's not 100% true. Sometimes the context of our HTML, such as which current tweet we're looking at, will have additional information that we want to use, that we want to pass into our helper in the form of a parameter. And lo and behold, you'll notice I have this parameter right here called user ID. So basically, when we're saying email, we're really calling this email helper function right here. It's like we're invoking it. It's almost as if, I really kind of wish that they wrote it this way with the parentheses on the end. It obviously doesn't work that way. But it would almost be kind of nice to see like, oh, we're calling the email function, which is right here. Because then we could just say this.createdBy, and we could pass the createdById, which is the user ID we want to look up, into our email helper function. And it would be easy to use it from there. So we can do this. We just can't use this syntax where it looks like we're calling the function. Instead, we're not allowed to have the parentheses, but we can just say this.createdBy. So it's the exact same thing minus having parentheses like that. So there's just a space instead, and I'm passing the this.createdById into the user ID of my helper function. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this.createdBy up here just because we don't need that anymore. And just to reiterate that one more time, I'm calling the email helper right here, and this second bit is the current tweets created by field, and we're passing that into the user ID parameter as an argument. Now in the body of this helper, we need to use that user ID in order to look up the email address of the user that created the tweet. So to do that, we just want to get the users collection, say .users. Now we're only trying to find a single object, so we'll say find one, and then we just say user ID. So this line right here would return the user object that created the current tweet. But that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to return the email. That is the name of our helper after all. So if we look back at the documentation, we will actually see, where are we? User, here we go. Here's what a user object looks like. We will see that every user object has an emails array, and then in that emails array, there's another object that has an address field. So if we want to get access to the email of this user, we'll say .emails at, is it .emails? Sorry. Yes, it is. .emails at the first index. And then we will say .address. So that's emails at the first index and then the address. And now, when we go back into our app, we would see which user created it. So if I'm logged in as wesleyfsmith@gmail.com right now. So if I create another tweet, we just saw one added at the bottom there. That was created by Wesley F. Smith. Now if I sign out, what we should see is that now, all right, surprise debug session round 2. So for whatever reason, it's not saying who it was created by when we're currently logged out. And my suspicion of why that's happening is that we aren't allowed to look at the users collection unless we're logged in. That would make sense to me because you probably wouldn't want to see a list of the users without currently being logged in. I definitely believe that you can change that functionality by using publish and subscribe. That is a discussion for a later time. Just know for right now, at least, if you log out of your app, you can't get access to the list of users, it appears. But that's okay. So if we sign back into our app, we'll say wes@wes.com. And then let me log in here. And so now that we're logged in, it still says that it still doesn't say who it was created by. So I wonder if we log out and if we log back in, come on, there we go. Okay, so now it says it was created by wesleyfsmith@gmail.com. Yeah. So it definitely appears to be a permissions issue. So basically, we aren't allowed to read the email address off of the user object that isn't for ourselves, meaning the currently logged in user. That's what it appears to be, at least. So if we go back to the sign in, and now I wonder if we create another. Yeah, so I don't know if you noticed here, I did click me and created another tweet, and you'll see that it says this tweet was created by wes@wes.com, right? Which is the current user that we're logged in as. So I'm allowed to read the email address off my user object, but not off of other user objects. So it definitely would appear to be a publish and subscribe issue. Yes, that's exactly what's happening. Because see, now when I'm logged in as Wesley F. Smith, we can see all the tweets that I own because that email address is exposed. But if we sign out and log into another account, we'll only see the accounts, the ones with the email address for our account. So there's some stuff that we can do to fix that. And that actually makes sense intuitively from a security perspective of how your app should be working. But you should get the basic idea of how to pass an ID off of this when we're iterating over a collection into a helper function to return a value. And we will get more into how to handle this sort of behavior in a later video.